Got the whole world in your hands. You got. Good morning. Here's Bharat. I'm broadcasting now from India, back in India. And today we're going to talk about the Jupiter finger. That's this finger, in case you don't remember. That's the index finger. The Jupiter finger is an active finger. It's how we present ourselves to the world, how we point ourselves to the world. And it represents that. It represents goals and ambitions, our religious ideals, ability to take responsibility. So the Jupiter finger is actually quite an important finger. I do see situations with the Jupiter finger as being short and long, mostly short, and that has a very significant influence and effect of people that do have a short finger of Jupiter. So we'll talk about that today, mostly. Now, when the Jupiter finger is shorter than the Sun finger, in relation to the length of the Saturn finger, it's considered a short finger of Jupiter. And there can be variations in that. I mean, as far as how short it is, it can be actually extremely short, which is when the Jupiter finger only goes to the first phalange of the Saturn finger. And I actually call that the Napoleon finger. And I'll explain later why I call that Napoleon. I think actually Napoleon might have had a short finger Jupiter, but I'm not sure. But I call it for a different reason why I call it Napoleon finger. Now, a short finger of Jupiter is very, very significant because this is the way you're presenting yourself to the world. So when that mechanism or that characteristics of your system is short, it shows a certain lack of development. And because of this, a person, what they do in their lives is directly related to what the short finger of Jupiter represents. In fact, 75% of what a person does, or why he does, is because of what the short finger of Jupiter does represent. So we will talk about that. So as I said, the mechanism is a little bit in deficiency. So it brings up certain issues. Now, the most important issue that it brings up, which I asked the person about, is there's a very strong need for this person to see themselves as a good person. And I would say that is like 99.5% probability is there that a person will say, yes, I really need to be a good person. It's very rare that they say no when they have a short finger of Jupiter. So if they have just that need alone, it is showing that this undercurrent is working. And it is a very strong undercurrent. And if certain needs aren't satisfied for them, for these people, they're feeling very uncomfortable. Because that brings up the next issue, which is people that have it, they usually don't have a good sense of who they are. If you put them into a room and there's nothing that they have to reflect upon or to give them a sense of reality, they feel completely lost. And it's a very, very uncomfortable feeling. So much so that they're doing many things to alleviate that funny feeling or that feeling of separation or alienation. You know, they're doing a lot for that. Now, what I'm saying is that the person doesn't have a good sense of who they are. So what they do is they look for mirrors in the world that they can reflect upon that gives them a sense of identity. Like they could be a husband or a wife, or they identify as the husband and wife. They identify as an employer or as an employee. They could, identify some sexual preference, for example, being gay. People, that's how strong a force is. A person will declare themselves gay just to have this identity. or they'll join the armed forces to get to have an identity like this. So that just shows how strong this underlying current is. So, but once these mirrors are actually in place, the person can actually function quite well and be quite content. But there's certain requirements about it, you know. It depends on what type of identities a person has. You know, what did the person pick up from the parents, from the teachers, from the friends? Did they pick up a negative self-image of themselves, or did they have a positive self-image of themselves? So what I tell people is to, first of all, is to look at that, look at what is your identities, where are you identifying? Are you identified as being the husband? Are you identifying being as the accountant or whatever your profession is? So, and is it positive and is it negative? And where are you getting your identity? Like, for example, I have a short finger Jupiter, and I'm very sensitive to what people think of me. You know, that's like, it's still, as much as I work on it, I still have that basic thing where, somebody has a negative opinion about me, or somebody has a positive opinion about me, it affects my sense of who am I. So I'm looking at that and exploring that with people when I give them a session. We just actually spend a lot of time with this. So it's there's some important aspects here. One is that a person doesn't have an identity where they're relying on that 100%, where they have all the eggs in one basket. So let's say they are totally identified as being the wife of somebody, and the husband leaves for whatever reason, the marriage breaks up. Not only they lose their partner, but they also lose their identity. So that can be terrible. That can be, people can be like depressive, suicidal even, when that situation happens. Or for example, a mother who totally identifies being the mother, and then the kids grow up, they want nothing to do with her, or they're going into living their own life, These women are completely lost. Because their whole identity was being the mother, and now what? So what can be very helpful in a palmistry session is to show this to women and help them to discover or create a new identity. So that is the point also, that people with a short finger Jupiter should be creating their own identities. They should wake up in the morning and say, okay, I am X, A, B, C, D, E, So then also, when a person has a short finger of Jupiter, if I ask them who they are, they're going to give me some quality. They're going to say I'm a good person, or they're going to say I'm an accountant, or they're going to say this or that. Whereas a person who has a good sense of who they are will immediately say, well, there's three sort of acceptable answers. They will say, I'm just me. I have a sense of who am I. I don't need to have an identity. I'm me. Or they'll say, I don't know, which is actually a better answer than saying I'm a good person. Or they will just say, I am, which is even a little bit further on in the spiritual realms. They say, I am. But if a person just says, I'm me, that's totally fine. It shows that they have a good sense of who they are. But a person with the short finger Jupiter normally will not do that. They will say, I'm this or I'm that. I'm discovering life or whatever, So that's the thing. So pointing out that this mechanism, this flow is happening within them. And also, people with short fingers of Jupiter, you see, because it's short, so they don't have the ability to fully express themselves, their emotions, their feelings. And what's very important for them is to have a medium where they can do that. For example, music or writing or whatever, basket weaving, whatever. But they can have some way, some medium, some medium where they can express themselves. And very often people that have short fingers of Jupiter, they become good musicians, for example. Because that's the whole thing with the short finger of Jupiter, is that it's a positive motivational driving force in people's lives. because they want to get good at playing. For example, I play guitar. I want to get good at playing guitar because I want to be able to express myself, because sometimes directly that's like very difficult to do. So the medium, having a medium that helps. Also to have a certain role, to create different identities. You know, that's one advantage of having a short finger Jupiter. A person is easy to create different identities. And then to use that identity to help to express themselves. For example, for myself, when I give somebody a session, I'm putting on the role as Bharat the palmist. And through being Bharat the palmist, there's more of me that comes through. There's more direction, I'm more direct, I'm more clear, there's fear disappears, you know. So whereas they would meet me in another situation, a social situation, and I wouldn't be as clear. So I'm using that role of palmist, that identity as palmist, to help express myself. So all in all, having a short finger of Jupiter is a very positive motivational driving force in people's lives. They'll start businesses, they'll do a lot of things to satisfy that unease that short finger can bring, you know. So we get to this point where I spoke about before, where there's what I call the Napoleon finger. That is rare. But when a person has a Napoleon finger, they not only have to see themselves as a good person, but they have to see themselves in society as being a good person. So they're creating situations like a little kingdom they have to create, where they are seen as a socially acceptable person in the society. And these people they'll start a travel agency with a restaurant and an internet place. This is what they will do. They have to be socially accepted in society. People there, and creating a little kingdom, you know, and then through this kingdom, or through this role and this identity, that now they're this person. Everything can happen in their life, and it's quite good. I know one guy that he started a restaurant exactly for that reason. He had a Napoleon thing. He started a restaurant, and it wasn't about the money, because it wasn't making very much money, but it was about him creating this little fishbowl which he could swim in, and through that he could have his friends, his family, his alcohol, and whatever, and then he was happy. And then at some point this man, he lost that restaurant, and he fell apart, and eventually very quickly he died from cirrhosis of the liver because he was alcohol. But that's just brings to the point of the importance of the short finger of Jupiter. Now the long finger of Jupiter, which is rare, the person will be dominating, you know, and it could be dominating in a positive way or dominating in a negative kind of way. But usually these persons will take charge, you know, with the long finger of Jupiter. The thing is, if you have the spirit phalange of the Jupiter finger bent, there will be issues in taking responsibility. So that's it. I've been talking for a while, and I will end it now. About the short finger and long finger of Jupiter, and we will see you next time. Thanks for listening to this, and of course you're welcome to follow me or download my book, and in any case I hope you see me some information here. Okay, well, goodbye, and see you next time. Got the whole world